All right, let's talk about something that seems to trip up just about everyone when they're starting out in the maker community. We're going to get to the bottom of why the Raspberry Pi Pico, even with that name, is absolutely not just a smaller Raspberry Pi.
So what's the deal here, right? I mean, you see the name Raspberry Pi, you see how tiny it is, and your brain immediately goes, oh, cool, it's the same thing, just way smaller and cheaper. And you know what? That's a totally logical assumption, but it's also completely wrong.
So let's just rip the Band-Aid off. The answer is a big, fat, definitive no. These two are fundamentally different creatures, built from the ground up for completely different jobs. And understanding that difference, well, that's the secret to picking the right tool and making your projects truly awesome. Okay, let's dive right into the heart of it. The whole distinction, everything we're about to talk about, it all comes down to one core concept. One of these is a computer, and the other is a microcontroller. They might sound kind of similar, but trust me, in the world of electronics, they are worlds apart. So first up, let's talk about the classic Raspberry Pi. This is what we call a single board computer, or an SBC. Just think of it like your desktop computer, but shrunk down onto a single board. It has a processor, it has memory, and here's the key part. It runs a full-blown operating system, like Linux. That means it can juggle multiple programs, browse the internet, handle complex software. It does computer stuff.
And now, let's look at the Pico. This little guy is a microcontroller, or an MCU. It is so much simpler. It doesn't have an operating system at all. Instead, you load one single piece of code onto it, and it just runs that code in a loop over and over and over again with incredible precision. Its job isn't to think. Its job is to do one specific thing and do it perfectly.
Here's probably the best way to wrap your head around it. A standard Raspberry Pi is the brain of an operation. It's complex, it's managing a ton of things at once, it's thinking and processing. But the Pico? The Pico is a reflex. It's like when a doctor taps your knee. You don't think about kicking the leg out, it just happens, instantly, reliably, every single time. That's the Pico. It's a dedicated, immediate response.
So we get the concept, right? But what does that actually look like in terms of the hardware, the specs? Let's put them side by side and see what we're really talking about.
And when you lay it all out like this, man, it becomes crystal clear. You've got the Pi, which is a computer running an OS for general tasks, and the Pico, a dedicated controller for physical things. And that fundamental split leads to the two massive, game-changing differences you see right at the bottom: power and price.
Seriously, just take a second to let that sink in. $4. That price point completely changes the game. It means you can stick a Pico into a project and not even think twice about it. You can build a project that uses dozens of them. For hobbyists and creators, that is a really, really big deal.
And the other knockout feature is power. The Pico just sips electricity. Compared to a regular Pi, which is pretty thirsty, the Pico can run for ages on a tiny battery. This just blows the doors open for projects that are portable, wearable, or maybe a remote sensor you want to leave out in the field for a month.
Okay, so they're different. But what does that actually mean for you when you're staring at a pile of parts, trying to figure out what to build next? When do you reach for the Pi, and when do you grab a Pico?
You're going to want the brain, the Raspberry Pi, anytime your project has complexity. If you need to connect to Wi-Fi, run a web server, display video on a screen, build a retro arcade machine, anything that needs the power and flexibility of a real computer, that's a job for the Pi. So, when do you need the reflex? You grab a Pico when your project is all about direct hands-on control of hardware. We're talking blinking LEDs, spinning motors, reading temperatures from a sensor, managing all the key presses in a custom keyboard you built. These are single, dedicated tasks that have to be super reliable and use very little power.
Look, it really is this simple. If you're ever stuck, just ask yourself these two questions. Does my project need a whole operating system and multitasking? That's a Pi. Does my project need to directly control some hardware and do it with low power? That's a Pico. Answering that will get you to the right board every single time.
So why do we even bother making such a big deal about this? Because really, understanding your tools is the first step to building something incredible. This isn't just about specs on a sheet, it's about what you can create.
This right here might be the single most important thing to take away from all of this. The Pico and the Pi are not competitors. The Pico isn't a worse Pi. They're just different tools for different jobs. It's like a hammer and a screwdriver. You wouldn't try to hammer in a screw, right? Same idea.
And that's really the magic of it.
Once you stop seeing them as competing and start seeing them as two unique tools in your toolbox, a whole new world of ideas opens up. You can design projects that are cheaper, more efficient, and just plain better. You can even have them work together. A Pi acting as the brain, giving orders to a whole team of Picos acting as its reflexes.
So that's the question I want to leave you with. Now that you know the difference, now that you know what each of these tools is amazing at, what are you going to build? Is your next big idea going to need one powerful brain? Or will it come alive with a whole bunch of fast, dedicated reflexes? The choice is yours.